Social Music Talk. Social Music Talk, a show that opens your mind about music in many ways, on many levels. Alex Cosper here with Sam Kadura. And lately we've been talking with radio people. The past couple weeks, some people from kind of like underground radio.
Guys, you've had some great shows lately.
Thank you.
They're getting better every week, and I have a
Yeah.
feeling today's show is going to be even better.
Yeah, this time we're going to be talking about the music industry from someone who's worked for two of the most prominent people in music biz history, Miles Copeland of IRS Records and Richard Branson of Virgin Records.
Wow.
And he's also worked for Enigma Records and has managed artists in the past and promoted artists. Today we have Tom Callahan. Thanks for joining us from Boulder, Colorado.
Hey.
Tom.
Alex, how are you?
Great. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day in Boulder.
Awesome.
And we're getting snow. We're getting snow tonight, so I've been enjoying the weather today so far, and just got off a bike ride. So,
Isn't Boulder like
so-
a really open-minded place, like a college town that has a cool music scene?
the music scene in Boulder is very cool. In fact, my history is that I moved here in 1993 and went back to LA in 99 for 17 years, and I relocated back here about 2.5 years ago. But in 93, when I got here, I had a little record label called Coyote Records I had started. And then Rob Gordon from What Are Records, War, he moved out here from New York the following year. And we kind of, we really did a lot here. And the AAA format started here, as you may recall.
Oh, yeah.
With
Denver.
KBCO Radio. So,
KBCO,
yeah,
and isn't there
well,
another one too in Denver, or was there at one time?
No, well, it was really KBCO. It was the Zimmerman brothers and a couple other people. There's about 50, maybe not even 50. There's probably 40 of us that actually helped establish that format.
Mm-hmm.
And the first conference was here in Boulder. So when I came out, I fell in love with it. And that was the end of August in 93. And I was living here in November of 93. That's how quickly I fell in love with it and relocated here. And I always wanted to come back. And about 6 years ago, I bought a place as an investment property here, and I'm actually living in it now. So,
All right.
yeah.
I love
Yeah,
the
it's cool.
AAA format. The AAA format looked like it was going to take over for a while, but now it seems like it's diminishing, like K-Fog in
Yeah.
San Francisco flipped to
Yeah,
alternative, then
that-
dropped alternative altogether. Things like
Yeah.
that. AAAs keep disappearing. I'm curious what you think about the state of AAA today in 2019.
Well, I have not been a record promoter for many years, so I don't keep up on it probably as well as you do. But, radio in general, terrestrial radio in general, always, it's having a tough time. It still reaches the most people, but it is having a tough time. I think, there were some great people in AAA like Dennis Constantine and, people that really put it on the map. And
Yeah, I've interviewed
original
Dennis.
intention. Yeah, and the original intention of the format I thought was beautiful, and it was great. And I actually, Nick Betting used to work for me, and he was establishing the AAA end of the business for me with my company. And, it was kind of organic. It was roots rock and roll, singer-songwriter. And there was these KGSR in Austin, and there was a bunch of stations all over the country, but there was no real format for it, a chart necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So we put all that together with the Gavin Report, of course, the Zimmerman brothers did. And but what happened, I think, was that as soon as it started to become popular, like anything else, money started to get infused in it by the labels. And, I can say this now because I don't care. But, the labels, started throwing money at everybody. And it became just too much of a mainstream format and started getting bastardized.
You mean it started getting hyped?
know.
Started getting hyped through
Yeah.
normal channels?
Yeah, you know how it is, and
Yeah.
and the real good music had a tough time. It was originally we were doing it for the independent artists and the
Right.
kind of the artists that were on the periphery that couldn't get mainstream play. But then when it started to become popular, when the money started getting infused into it, it started, they detached from that, and it became like everything else, and it kind of lost its organic feel and its truth. It lost its truth. It was too bad.
And you know what you just said kind of sums up everything. Why people keep asking, well, how come music's so different now? Well, it's like it's a lot more corporate now. Now you have 3 major labels instead of 6. That's one big difference between the 90s and now. And then, of course, all the other platforms that are competing with radio. And there seems to be the radio, both radio and music industries seem to be tight on new talent, like in terms of looking for developing artists or innovative artists. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. It's almost impossible because the mainstream radio playlists are very corporate indeed. And when I think Clinton's the one that passed that law.
Yeah. Telecom Act of 1996.
Yeah.
It erased ownership limits.
That screwed everything up.
Yeah.
And that made everything corporate.
Yeah.
And so the vice president of programming, for example, was out of Dallas, might have been programming stations in San Francisco. So there was no home field for it anymore. There was no. It used to be radio was community based.
Right.
And then it became corporate based. It's a national corporate thing. So it became vanilla. And those playlists got smaller and smaller and tighter.
And ironically, the stock prices got lower and lower too. For radio.
Yeah. But there was no room for a lot of independent artists, or not even independent, but maybe left of center artists to get on the mainstream playlist.
Yeah.
But now we've come full circle. So it's actually a really good time for music now. And there's so many different platforms out there. I'm not just talking about Spotify and streaming services, although that's offered, I wouldn't say necessarily a level playing field, but it's offered an opportunity to at least get some airplay. Mm-hmm. But there are other platforms being established that are allowing independent artists to become their own business, so to speak, where all the tools are available to them from licensing or streaming or distribution, social media marketing, things like that. And that's a good thing. I think that's opening up. It's allowing artists to actually have their own business to survive, because how many real stars are there that can actually make a real big living? There's only a small percentage, but you can make a decent living. Still, you're not going to be a superstar maybe, but you can make a decent living as a musician. And if you get in it for the wrong reasons anyway, you shouldn't be there. If you're in it to get rich and be a star, then that's kind of a nefarious way to actually even want to be a musician. You should want to survive and have a decent life to play music. I mean, what's better than that?
Oh, right. I know that you play music. I've seen you in photographs on Facebook playing guitar, and I'm a musician. I play guitar and write songs.
Yeah.
I think it's healthy to pursue music just for the sake of music, don't you think?
Well, sure. I mean, I was playing a little bit today. I don't play professionally anymore, and I gave it up and got in the record business. But my brother, for example, is a world-class classical composer, Kevin Callahan, and he makes a nice living doing that, and it's all he's ever done.
Wow.
He's a graduate of Dartmouth College, but he's just a composer. Not just, I don't mean like that, but I mean he never took his Dartmouth degree, but he's always done music, and he's had a beautiful life. He's in that world, you're not a superstar making $10 million a year.
Right.
But he's still doing music, and he's happy,
Well, I want to get deeper into the pathways to music, but I also want to talk about your background. So let's start with when you got into music for the first time.
Into music or the music business?
Music business. Well, both, I guess. Yeah. You have to get into music first.
Well, my music, my whole family is musical, and so we're always playing. My first professional job was at a little school. I think I was 9 years old playing drums for another school's performance. I think I got paid $10 or something. But I started playing and making some money, not much money, obviously, when I was 18, 19 years old. And then I was from Boston, and then when I left to California when I was 21, I toured for a few years with different bands and rock bands and funk bands, and then I did a lot of singer-songwriter stuff. And then around '87, I moved to California in '82. So in '87, I ended up getting in the record business. '86, '87, and that was with Enigma.
Okay.
And I think that year I made like $13,000.
So what was your job at Enigma?
Well, Enigma, I started as an intern, and I was 25 and a half years old, and they kept saying, you can't be an intern, you're too old, we don't have a program here. But it was really close to my house, and I knew one person who knew one person there, and it was a heavy metal area that I was interning for. And one thing led to another, and I got promoted, and then then I left and went over to Miles Company, which really gave me my foundation for the business.
That would be Miles Copeland.
Copeland, yeah.
Yeah, that's
he was my real mentor when I started.
That's an amazing. So do you know Miles personally?
Oh, very well. Yeah,
all right.
Well.
Now as I was telling Sam on the way here, Miles Copeland was responsible for like a long list of new wave and punk artists getting booked in England and Europe.
He's a hero in my mind, honestly. Really.
Oh, really?
He is.
Mine too. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
I mean, he's like a superhero.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the big thing, was the Police and REM and all those guys.
Right, he got them to deal at A&M Records, and through A&M, that's how he got to start IRS Records.
Exactly right, yeah. And I think that was before my time. I came in, REM was already gone. We had who do we have? We had like Concrete Blonde, which was great, the song Joey. There was so many great artists there.
Concrete Blonde was awesome. And I mean, they had pop crossovers like Go-Go's and the Bangles.
Yeah, of course. And then we did it. Then they did the Smithereens. We did a deal with Capitol. I think IRS did a joint venture with Capitol at some point, like the Smithereens. And I can't remember. It was so long ago. But we had a bunch of good stuff, and it was a lot of fun. People that worked at IRS Records were a blast to be around.
And do you think that had a lot to do with Miles, his love for music, and coming from a musical background?
Oh, I think it always, the culture always comes from the top, I think. Miles, he was, as you probably know, he was a polarizing type of figure. I wouldn't say he had enemies per se, but he was a tough guy.
I've only seen him in interviews and heard him just in interviews.
Yeah, he's intense.
Yeah.
So, but he's brilliant. I mean, when I got my job there for the first time, I went and sat in his office. He had a huge wooden desk. And he had like a mace, a ball with spikes on it. And I sat on the couch, and it's just the two of us. And he's circling it in his hand. He's got this ball with spikes hanging out. He's giving me the history of rock and roll for 2 straight hours. I don't think I said a word for 2 hours. And then he stood up and he goes, well, can you start Monday? And I said, yeah. That was it. He didn't really even ask me any questions. He just lectured me 2 hours. And then on Monday I started.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. He was great.
So then how long were you at IRS?
Well, I was at IRS at that point, I was about a year, maybe a year and a half. And then I got a call from Virgin Records to go there to run their adult contemporary department and then develop, the NAC, the jazzy department as well. And then, of course, we started handpicking. I think Paul Yesko was one of the first guys picking the stations, that had a demographic that were listening to this quote-unquote AAA prior to it actually being formatted. But then after about a year and a half, IRS called me back, and Barry Lyons was my boss there. And Barry said, hey, come back to IRS as my VP under me. And I said yes over dinner because I just loved IRS and, wasn't thrilled at Virgin, although Virgin was very cool. And I went back for one day to IRS, and then Virgin came and said, no, you're coming back. What do you need? Gave them my terms, and they accepted, and I stayed at Virgin for about another year and a half. And then I started my own business in April of '92, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And didn't Richard Branson get out of Virgin Records like in the early '90s at some point?
I was there when it was sold, and I was one of the few, not one of the few, but I was able to maintain my position there when he sold it to EMI. I remember Jeff Ayeroff and Jordan Harris, who were the managing directors at the time. They had us, we had the VP meetings and everything on Wednesdays. I remember them saying, hey, we're hearing all the stuff in the Wall Street Journal. Everybody's talking about that Virgin's being sold. Don't worry about it. Nothing's happening. Nothing is being sold. Next morning I woke up and Virgin was sold for $900 million to EMI. So after the night before the telling, I said, no, don't worry. But like I said, I stayed for maybe another 6 or 8 months, whatever it was. And I left on my own accord. No ill will feelings. In fact, Virgin became one of my clients, soon after that.
Social music.